Hello. Today our group will be presenting about breeding captive populations. This presentation will include an introduction into the topic and talk about the efforts of the programs involved. This will include the challenges they face and the laws and regulations they must abide by, specifically focusing on great apes.
We can look at the great apes to observe so many things that relate back to humans as they are our closest relatives. The great apes in a captive setting allow for us to have insight into human evolution and behaviors. By studying their social dynamics, communication methods, and reproductive strategies, anthropologists can better understand the origins of human behavior. When looking at the great apes as a comparative model, we are able to see more into our evolutionary adaptations. The conservation efforts of the great apes is something crucial to their survival. As of right now, the release of captive raised animals in the wild is not a major consideration, but it is being studied and worked towards. As we keep these animals in captivity, anthropologists and biologists can study further into their ecological needs and behaviors and potentially mitigate the reintroduction program issues. As with any captive animal, there are ethics to be considered. The great apes bring a special dynamic to this as they are highly intelligent creatures, and their captivity has been under scrutiny as well as their consideration of legal personhood.
Captive breeding is used as a conservation tool, normally to prevent species extinction and maintain that genetic diversity among species. Sometimes this can be used to reintroduce animals back into the wild, but unfortunately this is normally not possible for great apes because it is incredibly challenging and in many cases not feasible due to a combination of biological, ecological, and social factors. Many programs manage the reproduction of endangered species in controlled environments such as zoos, sanctuaries, wildlife reserves, and research facilities.
As for current captive breeding programs, in North America, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums has what is called a species survival plan. The parallel to this in Europe is the European Endangered Species Program. These programs are used across endangered species to maintain the populations in zoos. A population viability analysis, or PVA, is often used to determine this. PVA is a risk assessment tool that uses mathematical and statistical methods to predict the probability that a population or species will go extinct at some point. These programs work on a regional level to provide stable and self-sustaining population with sufficient genetic variability to ensure survival for future generations. To accomplish this, zoos need to collaborate with one another on things such as methodology, results, errors, and successes.
Global collaboration and partnerships between captive breeding programs strengthens the efforts to balance conservation, ethical care, and public education for these endangered species. Some of these programs include zoos, whose key role is to study animal behavior and educate the public on conservation. There's also sanctuaries that care for the animals that are not suitable for release but still contribute to genetic research, such as great apes. These sanctuaries provide good welfare, housing, and enrichment for those species that are not able to be reintroduced back into the wild. Additionally, there are research facilities whose main focus is scientific studies, breeding techniques, and long-term health of species in a captive setting.
Captive breeding programs all have a common goal. That goal is to maintain the ex situ populations and the in situ populations. Ex situ means animals that are kept outside of their natural habitats, meaning zoos or aquariums. In situ means animals that are kept in their natural environment or the wild. By increasing the ex situ or zoo populations, we are able to increase the education, awareness, and passion for these animals. In return, people are more likely to be aware of their environmental impact and therefore a decrease in the degradation of natural habitats, which can lead to more wildlife opportunities or in situ populations to thrive.
Captive breeding programs require careful consideration of several factors to maximize their effectiveness and ensure the long-term viability of populations. Mate choice is critical to avoid a genetic bottleneck, which can reduce genetic diversity and fitness over generations. Allowing individuals to choose mates when feasible can enhance offspring viability by promoting natural selection within a controlled environment. Reproductive health is another crucial factor, as inbreeding can lead to reduced genetic variability, which increases susceptibility to diseases and can negatively affect reproductive success. Maintaining genetic diversity is vital to prevent inbreeding depression and to strengthen immune responses. Housing conditions also play a significant role, as enclosures must mimic the species' natural habitats and diets as closely as possible to support physical and psychological well-being. Providing an environment that aligns with the animal's natural behavior helps maintain their health and prepares those captive breeding programs that work with species outside of great apes for potential reintroduction into the wild. Finally, population size management is necessary to prevent vulnerability due to a limited gene pool. Setting clear goals for population sizes helps in determining whether the program's focus should be on maintaining genetic diversity, increasing population numbers, or preparing animals for reintroduction. Effective programs balance these elements to enhance species survival while minimizing the negative effects of captivity. Breeding animals in captivity involves several complex challenges that must be carefully managed to ensure success. One key consideration is maintaining suitable social structures that reflect the natural interactions these animals would experience in the wild. Social dynamics play a crucial role in breeding. For example, disruptions in hierarchy can lead to stress, decreased fertility, or even aggressive behaviors that ultimately affect reproductive success. Another major challenge is addressing welfare concerns, as captive environments can lead to boredom, stress, or abnormal behaviors if animals are not provided with appropriate stimulation and enrichment. Ensuring that animals can engage in natural behaviors is vital, as it promotes both physical and psychological well being and can enhance breeding outcomes. To facilitate this, breeding programs often need to stimulate natural conditions to encourage courtship and mating behaviors typical of wild settings. Successfully replicating these elements not only improves the chances of reproduction, but also helps maintain genetic diversity, which is crucial for the long-term health of captive populations. By addressing these challenges, breeding programs can better support the sustainability and potential conservation efforts for endangered species.
Great apes play a major role in medical advancements, research, education, entertainment, and conservation. Ensuring the well being of great apes while they're in captivity is important because it will affect their adaptability, health, how they cooperate, and their survivability. Ethical concerns and challenges take place outside of captive breeding, but there are also issues that happen within captive breeding as well. For example, they could not be given the proper treatment that allows them to express their natural behaviors, but they also could be easily exploited as well. There's an increasing demand for gray apes around the world, therefore, it's important to strengthen laws so that there is more ethical sourcing and proper treatment and improvement of each individual's well being rather than treating them as disposables. Therefore, education is key. Laws and regulations must be in place that protect the wild population and the captive populations because the use of great apes affects their possible extinction in the wild. There's an increase of demand for great apes both illegally and legally, so there are many concerns that need to be solved. Issues within captive breeding include psychological issues, breeding practices, genetic management, and health. Outside issues include exploitation, habitat loss, and different ethical values. And the illegal wildlife trade of great apes has a major effect on its species as well. They're shipped around the world and they're used in entertainment, research, cuisine as pets, and the industry is extremely corrupt if the animals are not properly sourced. There are current enforcement efforts that are being made to eliminate unauthorized trafficking and mistreatment, but there are also other legal requirements for captive breeding of great apes to ensure proper treatment and research. There are federal regulations that cover the responsibilities and standards that can lead to improvements of primate care and use. Great apes are protected through the Animal Welfare Act, and the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services is responsible for enforcing the AWA and the USDA regulations, and facilities cannot operate without these regulations. AWA cannot protect all great apes equally, and there are still a lot of loopholes that must be regulated. In regulated facilities, there's a minimum requirement for housing, sanitation, safety, employees, veterinary care, transportation, resources, physical and mental well-being, and these requirements must be met. If violated, there are 3 possible levels of enforcement that can occur. Another example of an organization helping with legal requirements is the Interagency Primate Steering Committee. Since 1974, they've increased efforts to source animals properly and treat them in the best way possible in a laboratory setting. Some states are more strict than others, but there's a baseline that must be followed for the regulated. Laws and regulations must continue to evolve and stay in place to improve the great ape populations and well-being.
Researchers at the University of Birmingham are making great efforts to enhance the well-being and conservation of captive great apes. These amazing animals that are closely related to us often cannot express the full range of their natural behaviors in zoo enclosures or sanctuaries. This limitation can impact both their physical and mental health. To address this, the researchers are working closely with zoos and sanctuaries worldwide to create environments that provide the same physical and mental challenges wild apes experience. These changes are particularly important for great apes rescued from the exotic pet trade. Many of these individuals arrive in poor physical or emotional states, and proper rehabilitation can make a significant difference in their recovery and quality of life. What's even more exciting is that these interventions could help sanctuaries prepare great apes for a possible return to the wild. Reintroducing apes to their natural habitats is an ambitious but vital goal in conservation. Though at present, most captive great apes are not able to be returned to the wild. Central to this effort is a tool developed by the researchers called the Enclosure Design Tool, or EDT. The EDT is a cutting-edge approach to identify gaps in how enclosures support natural behaviors. It provides zoos and sanctuaries with insights to enhance animal welfare. The benefits don't stop with great apes. Researchers believe the EDT could serve as a model for improving the welfare of other captive species so that they can be better taken care of. This work is not just about improving captivity, it's about providing hope for the species' survival and enriching their lives. Led by Loskudov and their team, there have been many advancements in reproductive research for captive female great apes. These researchers are focusing on ovarian and endocrine activity to improve reproductive performance through biotechnology. Some of the techniques like artificial insemination, in vitro fertilization, and embryo transfer are at the forefront of their work. Artificial insemination has already resulted in pregnancies for chimpanzees and orangutans, although success rates have been known to vary. Additionally, embryos have been non-surgically retrieved from chimpanzees and gorillas, but successful offspring from IVF have yet to be achieved. There are many challenges that remain, particularly in understanding ovulation induction, the specific requirements for sperm and eggs in IVF, and how stress, anesthesia, and surgery impact ovulation and pregnancy. This research holds great promise not only for improving reproduction in captive great apes, but also for contributing to their long-term conservation.
Captive breeding programs for chimpanzees often face significant health challenges that impact both individual welfare and population sustainability. Inbreeding is a prevalent issue that contributes to increased rates of genetic diseases and infant mortality, as highlighted by Rails and Balloon. Health issues such as lymphoma and heightened susceptibility to infections are directly linked to inbreeding, which limits genetic diversity and compromises the immune system. Poorly designed captive environments further exacerbate these problems, restricting physical activity and leading to stress-related conditions emphasized by the University of Birmingham study on improving great ape enclosures. Captive chimpanzees also face developmental delays and mental health issues when their environments fail to stimulate natural habitats adequately, impairing their overall well-being. Maintaining genetic diversity in captive chimpanzee populations is crucial for ensuring their long-term viability and adaptability. Lewis and Roberts stressed that genetic drift and inbreeding depression in small isolated populations can lead to harmful genetic conditions and reduced fitness. Conservation programs such as the Species Survival Plan and European Endangered Species Program aim to address these issues by promoting strategic breeding practices that retain founder diversity and prevent bottlenecks, as outlined by Moreno Rivas. Genetic studies, like those by Pedro Martinez, provide insight into managing captive populations to preserve genetic traits critical for adaptability and survival, underscoring the need for continued genetic monitoring and informed breeding strategies. The evolutionary trajectories of captive chimpanzees are shaped by the constraints and interventions of artificial inbreeding programs. While selective breeding and biotechnological advances, such as those described by Lostnoff, have improved reproductive success, these practices also alter the genetic composition of captive populations. Traits that ensure survival in the wild, such as natural foraging behaviors or disease resistance, may diminish in captivity if they are not maintained as part of the breeding criteria. Moreover, Tardif highlighted how environmental and hormonal factors in captivity influence reproductive behaviors, leading to potential shifts in evolutionary pathways. Addressing these changes requires an emphasis on designing environments and breeding strategies that preserve natural behaviors and adaptability, as outlined by the University of Birmingham's Enclosure Design Tools Innovative.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation about breeding captive populations. In the next two slides, we will provide references and image sources that we use to complete this presentation, so you can take a look at any of those if you have further questions. Again, thank you for listening.